Welcome to the season finale of Real Talk with Sarah, and what a season it's been. I've had the honor of sitting down with some of the top experts in their fields. We've talked food and exercise and mental health and grief and trauma and relationships and pain and so much more. In fact, we've talked about so many topics that I wanted to share some of the highlights, the bits and pieces that really resonated with me. And instead of being on my own to do that, I wanted to bring along my partner, Roger Deveau, to hear what stood out for him over the past 12 weeks as well. So that's what we're going to do. Take a walk down memory lane and share some of the highlights of this first season. We're so happy you're here to join us. So let's do this. Episode 13 of Real Talk with Sarah starts right now. The vision for this show didn't come to me in a dream, and it wasn't even on my radar, to be honest. Starting my own talk show, producing and hosting it, these were not skills I thought I had. I mean, I've interviewed dozens of people on my blog and on my sobriety podcast, but starting a TV show? Definitely not something I was planning. But if I've learned anything from my friendship with Marie-Lune Fortin, who's been on the show a couple of times, is that sometimes we just have to trust the universe and our angels. And that's what I did. Last April, I spoke at an event at the University of New Brunswick ahead of world-renowned psychic medium Michelle Russell. If you ever get the chance to attend an event or have a one-on-one session with her, I'll tell you, it'll be life-changing. Well, during her event, my Nana came through, my mom's mom. According to Michelle, my Nana was a little feisty and kept asking me, "When are you going back on TV?" I explained to Michelle that I'd done a few TV spots and I hosted a blog and a podcast, but that I didn't understand what she meant. Michelle made it very clear that my Nana meant that I needed to be on TV. I returned home to Ottawa and booked a session with Marie-Lune Fortin, and before she could even shuffle her oracle cards, she looked me square in the eyes and said, "Oh yeah, your Nana is here, and she's ticked that you're not on TV." After the session, I went home, did a little soul searching, created the idea for this show, contacted the supervising producer here at Rogers, and the rest, as they say, is history. Season 1 has blown me away. I've learned so much, and I know the shows are resonating with others too, because every day I receive messages from people letting me know that they feel more empowered, more hopeful, or less alone after watching an episode. And that has always been the goal, to remind people that no matter what, we are never, ever alone. So as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I thought this season finale would be a perfect chance to go back and remind ourselves of how far we've come. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather do that with than my life and business partner, my very favorite person, Roger Deveau. Welcome, Roger.
I'm excited to be back again.
I know, third time's a charm.
Let's see if I get it right this time.
Yeah, well, and I just want to say thanks so much for everything you've done. Of course, supporting me in all of my crazy ideas. And also, you've been the floor director, not only a guest here, but you also help people get all mic'd up and ready to go for the show. So I just want to say thank you so much.
I wouldn't miss it for the world. And
awesome.
You've had amazing guests on, covered some awesome topics, and it's just been a blast to be a part of.
Oh, thank you. I agree. Oh my gosh. So let's do this. Let's dig right in. We started to kind of prepare ahead of it, and we're like, we got to race through all of these, but we're going to give them our full attention. So episode 1 was all about the food. So my favorite part was having Natasha Villeneuve and Corey Keeley with me. They are two of my favorite people. And I really just resonated so strongly with Natasha Villeneuve's core message when I asked her to sort of drill down to the one thing that, you know, all of her research, all of her training, what is that one thing, that one message that she wanted to share? And she's like, you know, eat real food, you know, just get back to basics and eat real food. And I think that, you know, my philosophy, as you know so well, is if we can get our food right, so many other things fall into place. And what I think you and I both found was almost every other episode, the experts that we had on were talking about how important nutrition is to our mental health, to reducing stress, to dealing with concussions, to chronic pain, to all of these other things. Every single time, the food is at the pinnacle of all of it. So
it really is everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I first met you, I, at that point, had been eating a lot of junk food, eating out of restaurants all the time. I had low energy. I felt like not very good. Mm-hmm. And you got me on to eating real food. And that changed everything. I lost a ton of weight, about 50 pounds, had more energy, just every single part of my life, mental clarity, focus in business, everything got better with food. And so, yes, we had Natasha on for a whole segment, But I love that what it comes down to is when she says, just eat real food.
I know, it's everything. And then we had Keeley. Oh my gosh, she is one of my, as I said, my favorite people. She is a mompreneur. She's busy. She's always doing something. She's got her own businesses. She has 3 busy kids. She's a wife. And oh my gosh, she keeps it looking all so easy, because my favorite tip from her was really all around keeping it organized. Being organized in the kitchen makes it so that we can make healthy fast food. We don't have to hit the drive-through. We really can make it so that if we organize our kitchen in a certain way, if we have tools and appliances that really help us to get the job done, we don't have to make those excuses that I just don't have time. We really can do it in our own kitchen. So she brought her Vitamix blender, which I'm a big fan. I use my blender 3 times a day.
Yes, you do.
I love her spiralizer idea, and I love that little tip of getting just a cheap, easy knife sharpener so that you're always dealing with sharp knives. And I know that some people that you and I both know prefer to use dull knives, but it makes chopping so much more tedious, so much harder. And the trick is, if you're going to use a knife, you just have to curl your fingers and cut with the knife that way, and that means that you won't be slicing off a finger. So all of her tips were great, but those were my favorites. How about you?
I loved the Soda Stream.
Oh, yeah.
I think if people are having trouble being hydrated these days, I was one of them. It's not fun drinking water, so just getting that bare minimum every day because you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
But using the Soda Stream, cutting up a lime, squeezing it in, it's delicious.
I know.
It's awesome, and it gets you drinking a ton of water. So
I know.
avoid the syrups and stuff that come with it,
Yeah.
but Soda Stream all the way.
Oh, it's totally changed your life. And I love my recipe for healthy 7-Up, where I just, make this seltzer water with the Soda Stream, and we squeeze in a ton of lemon and lime juice and tons of ice, and it really tastes
delicious.
It's amazing. It really can help people get away from a pop addiction or a soda addiction, which a lot of people have. So great tips. All right, let's keep it rolling. We got to get to episode 2. This was all about exercise, and we had Sarah Zahab and Tony Greco with us. So that was a really fun one. What I really loved about Sarah's message was, first off, she's an exercise physiologist and kinesiologist. And what I find so awesome about working with her is that she really looked at, and I'll use my example, she looked at my body, and the way that she was looking at my body, it was like she was really just almost critiquing it, but in such a cool way. I could tell it wasn't in a judgmental way. It was truly, where were the weak areas? And that's what I find so great about what she does, what kinesiologists and exercise physiologists do. They really look for the weak areas. Of course, I went in there wanting to, get my bikini body and all the rest of it. And she's like, okay, we can table that. Let's worry about that later. Let's get you strong in the weak areas. And that's what she is just so awesome at to do.
She's really powerful. And I really suggest anyone dealing with any kind of body or self-image issues to go back and watch that episode, because I know I can relate. Sierra talked about, she was a fitness model, winning competitions, and she would still struggle with body image. Mm-hmm. And I know when I lost all that weight after meeting you, even though I had lost 50 pounds, looking in the mirror, I didn't see it. Mm-hmm. I was still the same. And I think that happens with a lot of people. And the problem with that is, if we're going for that goal, we think we'll be happy when we hit it. But if we're not present and we're not seeing those changes, we're not going to be happy. And so we're just going to go right back to doing what we're doing. Yeah,
so we'll fall back into those old habits,
exactly.
Right?
So it's so important that we really be present and pay attention to what's happening and give ourselves some love, because we're way too hard on ourselves, and we think we'll be happy when, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. And then we had Tony Greco talking about Strong Mind, Lean Body, his new book. And I really connected with the tip that he shared on, and I use this with my coaching clients as well, where we draw that wheel and almost make sort of pieces of the pie. And you can label them. So relationships, career, money, health, fitness, and you can sort of plot, use it like a graph, and plot where you are on that graph, on that pie graph. And all of a sudden you connect those make lines connecting those dots, and you start to see how
you don't have a wheel.
You do not have a wheel at all. And that's really powerful to me. Really taking that bird's eye view, looking at your life in a way that we often don't. We're just in our lives doing our life, and we don't take that time to take a step back and to look at, wait a minute, where am I struggling? And where am I doing really well? And being able to really appreciate where we're doing well and work on the areas of weakness.
Well, and so many of us are visual, so just even being able to visually see the different aspects of your life can put it in perspective. And I really loved where Tony talked about taking track of what you did throughout the day, your wins and your losses, and keeping track. So at the end of the day, just try to get a couple more wins in so you can see, yeah, maybe I still slipped on my diet or didn't exercise or did a couple slip-ups, but if you make sure you get those wins, at the end of the day, you can look and say, well, look, I may have slipped up a couple times, but in the end, I got some more wins. And I think that's powerful because our brain needs positive reinforcement. If we're trying to make a change, if we're trying to create new habits, we need to see those wins. Our brain needs to see it to create that momentum. So by just doing a simple thing like Tony mentioned, tallying up your wins and losses, focus on those wins, your new lifestyle will become a habit faster than, well, if at all, usually people don't even get the change they want. So it's a real good tip.
Yeah, and I agree with you that success breeds success. So when we can look at our list and say, wow, I really did a good job today, we can first of all pat ourselves on the back, give ourselves a little self-love, like you say, and keep going along with that momentum. So the next episode was on mental health, and we had Elizabeth Ekret, she's an occupational therapist, and Dr. Tanya Manicam, she's a naturopathic doctor with Nutrichem. And what I loved so much about Elizabeth's story and being here was the fact that I really did not know what an occupational therapist was.
I didn't either.
I know, or did. And I just found that she, what I just really liked that she really helps people with their mental health. And she gave me an example of helping somebody who was really trying to get back into the gym. And you know what? The first time, they sort of just talked about wanting to get back into the gym. And maybe talked about what the workouts were going to be like. And then the next time, went a little bit deeper. And then the next time, walking by the gym to finally get that person back into the gym. And so I just found that was a really cool process to have that really intimate relationship with somebody that gets it, that isn't going to judge you. Because I think for a lot of people, they see people with mental health issues and they're like, you want to go back to the gym? Go back to the gym. Yeah. Like why not? Why don't you just go? But unfortunately, that's not always possible for people that are dealing with mental illness. So I really appreciated her approach.
If it was as easy as that, we would all do it.
I know.
And I think one of the tips that Elizabeth shared that I think is really powerful for people is really create a plan. And we talked about with Tony creating that win and loss and looking at your wins, getting that positive reinforcement. I think so many of us want change, and if we're struggling in an area, we want it to change, but if we don't make a plan and a decision to do something differently, we'll just keep doing the same things. And so by making a plan of what little wins can I put into my day, what little bits can I do, we get to actually take some kind of action. And just like you said with Elizabeth, going out with people, planning, taking those first steps, those baby steps are what you need to do to create a change. But if you don't make a plan for it, you'll probably end up just doing what you've always done.
Absolutely. And then we had Tanya Manicam on. Oh my goodness. I did not know all there is to know about hormones. And when I met with her in the clinic, it was just mind-blowing what I was able to learn about the endocrine system, all of our hormones that I think we just kind of take for granted that everyone, has hormones and we just think that they just work properly and everything's just going along fine. But it really opened my eyes having my body chemistry balancing done and learning that, I was dealing with a lot of great stress, a lot of good things were happening in my life, but my body doesn't care if it's good stress or bad stress. It just sees stress. So my cortisol level was so sky high, and it was stealing from my progesterone, and so my progesterone was low, and my periods were kind of off, as you know, and I was like, what's going on? And so it really gave me that inside scoop on what was going on inside my body. And I don't think that I would have necessarily, I do a lot of things. I meditate, I do yoga, I, practice mindfulness, I eat well, I exercise, but I don't know that I would have gone to methylated B vitamins to supplement with, or taking magnesium at night to calm myself and do all of these other things, and then make a very rigid, structured meditation practice. I mean, I had been meditating for years, but now it's a deal breaker. I mean, every single day it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, well, for me, And I was really happy she joined us, even though she was so pregnant and ready to birth.
I know, and I swear, I said to her before the show, I'm going to go on and I'm going to tell everybody that you are 9 months pregnant. She was due a week later. And because we had talked about it so much, I completely forgot to say it on the air. And my mom was like, she was pregnant, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, she was.
Yes, she was beautiful and pregnant.
But just that conversation of hormones in general, I think as you know, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure a lot of other guys are in the same boat. We never talk about hormones or think about hormones. You know, we know there's testosterone and that's about it, but we don't think of all the other things that could be affecting our mood and our energy levels and our sex drives, all these different hormones that are at play in our bodies. And I think it just goes completely overlooked. So I think even if you're a guy, especially if you're a guy, really, go watch that episode and learn something about hormones, because it might help you make that shift you're trying to make.
Absolutely. Like, you know, again, so many men are dealing with high stress and that drops their testosterone. So that's a huge issue for guys.
Yeah.
Before we go to break, we got to get to Kylie Delfino, episode 4 on the inner critic. Oh, wow. She was, I mean, what a powerful story. She had a near-death experience that really just forced her to let go and showed us that, you know, we do have to surrender sometimes. There are times in our lives where we have to just really understand we are not always in control.
Yep.
And we have to just surrender. And she did it beautifully. And wow, did it completely change her life. She was able to let go of those feelings of shame and guilt of having to let go of being the nutritionist, having her own food line, having her own practice, having her own office, and all of that. She had to let go of that and not let that inner critic really take her down. So I just thought that was really powerful with Kylie.
And it's, I mean, she's a prime example of what can happen if you do just release all of the things you're struggling to hold on to, how we think we should be and how we identify ourselves. And I mean, I just can't talk about Kylie without mentioning the crystal singing bowls.
Oh, the best.
They're incredible. If it's hard for someone like me to meditate, and I know a lot of people struggle with meditation. How do I quiet my mind? These bowls, as Kylie said, resonate at 8 beats per second, which is the same as Mother Nature, as well as our internal system during REM sleep. And I can attest that as soon as you hear these bowls and you're in the room, at least with me, my mind goes quiet. All of that nagging, all those thoughts just zones out, and it is such an amazing experience.
And we've experienced it now with her a few times, and she also, if you go to her website, you can get the download. You can go ahead and listen to the Crystal Bowl meditation. I think the biggest lesson that she taught me, though, was our job here is to love ourselves and one another unconditionally. That was huge. That's really where she got to on her journey, was really understanding that and believing that with everything inside of her, that is where we need to go. It's not about what we do. It's about who we are and loving who we are and others unconditionally. All right, here we go. After the break, we're going to have more highlights. Back in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're taking a look back at season 1 of this show, and I've got my partner Roger Deveau here to help me do that. All right, so where did we leave off? Episode 5, and that's life purpose. That was the episode you were on for, the first one.
And one of the things that I really hope people get from that episode is to take an action. You know, Moira had a real great exercise that people can go through. And I think if you're struggling to find a purpose, if you're wondering what's the point, what should I be doing with my life, same thing like we were talking about before, if you don't put pen to paper, if you don't have a plan, you're probably going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I think anyone who's struggling should go check out that exercise that Moira brought us through and put pen to paper. Take that action, start writing some things down, and through that, your creative juices will flow, inspiration will come and new ideas may come to you.
Yeah, I agree, because I do think that so many people are still thinking that a life purpose is just going to fall into their lap and all of a sudden they're going to figure it out. You got to work for it. You've got to do that work to get there.
Yes, you do.
And I really like that she shared her emotional freedom technique, her tapping technique. And on her website, she, if you go to wellnesswithmoira.com/real talk, you can get the video teaching you how to use these meridian points, these acupressure points, to really calm ourselves down. And what she talks about is it allows us to get out of our head and drop into our heart. And I think that so many of us are just going around the world always in our heads, not in our hearts. And so if we can get into our heart space a little bit more, it really does help to lead us to our life purpose. And then you were on and you were talking about the brain, of course, one of your favorite things to talk about. And what I love is that, you really said, you talked about, how the brain works and how we just really do things on autopilot. We just keep looking at the results in our lives and wondering why they're not changing when we keep doing the same thing. And we all know that the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. And you did that, you had that great example of the computer where we're constantly looking at the piece of paper that we've printed out, wondering why is that mistake still there? Why is that issue still there? And yet we need to go back to the computer. We need to go back to the inputs, what we're putting in the first place.
Yeah, it's one of the most important things that people can understand. And again, when you're really trying to change anything, but it's like if you're dating and you keep, we've all met that person who keeps dating the same type of person and they're frustrated with it. Like, why do I keep dating this kind of person? And they keep focusing on that person they're dating and switching them and trying to fix them instead of, and that's the printed sheet, instead of taking that step back and looking at what are they doing to attract that person or be attracted to that type of person if it's not working for them, which is that program. So really taking that step back and changing what's happening inside instead of focusing so much on the results that are happening around us.
Absolutely, well said. All right, episode 6 was on trauma.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that show has been so well received. We've received so many amazing messages from people talking about that. Dr. Shelley Jordan, Ryan Theriot, and Tara Hagen-Fields were our guests for that show. And what I really liked about what Dr. Jordan talked about was really helping people to regulate their emotions, really learning how to regulate them through using things like, of course, cognitive therapy, but also connecting with others and using nature, being out in nature, being with other people, being with animals. And she talked about service animals, meditation, mindfulness, breathing exercises, really using those grounding techniques to keep people in the here and now. Because what so often happens with people dealing with trauma is they're going back into what traumatized them instead of trying to stay in the here and now. So that was what really spoke out for me.
Yeah, and I really liked how she talked about breaking through that stigma of trauma. And I know it's hard because it's an invisible pain. It's an invisible damage. And I liked her example where she talked about if I take a hammer and I hit your knee, you're injured. Yeah. You don't question, oh no, why is my knee hurt? Well, you had something hit your knee and hurt it. Or if I'm slowly over time keep hitting your knee, it's going to start to hurt.
Yeah.
And we don't question that because it's a physical thing we can see. Where with trauma, you have something happen, it traumatizes you. And that's it. You're traumatized. We have to get away from worrying about why trauma happens and just understand that it does, and we need to help people through it.
Absolutely. Ryan Theriot came on and shared his personal story, which again, I always appreciate when people do that. And he shared about equine therapy. That's what he uses. That's what he now helps people to do. And how horses are just giant biofeedback machines. And they really value congruence. Come to them feeling miserable and unhappy, they're cool. But if you come to them looking like you're happy, but you're miserable inside, you're really hurting, they're not comfortable with that. So that was the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, they're amazing. I know with our brief, we got to try it out briefly. And it really, just being with the horses, using the props, I left it and I went in just seeing what it was like without necessarily a real problem I wanted to focus on, but I left looking at an issue that I was dealing with in a completely different light. I suggest everyone who's dealing with any kind of trauma takes a look at equine therapy.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Tara Hagen-Fields was here as a myofascial release specialist, and what I just really couldn't believe, and I know you'll agree with me, what the heck is fascia? Who knows about fascia? I mean, it surrounds every single bone, cell, every single blood vessel, everything in our body is surrounded by this network, this system that we don't even talk about or know about. And so I love Nikki Myers. She's an amazing yoga instructor. She talks about our issues are in our tissues, and myofascial release helps to move the issues out of our tissues, and it's awesome. I know that you haven't been yet. I've experienced it, and again, talking about encouraging people to try new things, myofascial release. If you've tried other things and you want to, really change your life, it's an amazing way to do that. Okay, we are going quick, but after the break, we'll have some more highlights. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Talk with Sarah. Roger and I are taking a walk down memory lane and looking back at season 1 to share some of the lessons we've learned along the way. So the next episode was episode 7 on relationships, and we had Marion Mead, Linda Miller, and Caitlin McNamara with us. And so my lesson from Marion for sure was the piece on self-love. I think that unless and until we get to a place where we truly love ourselves, we can't be in a relationship loving another. It just really doesn't work. And I also loved her little tip on the Mona Lisa smile. It was just a small tip that she shared, but it's something that's really stuck with me, and I've been using it just at coffee shops and in traffic and wherever I'm kind of waiting, or if I'm just walking around in the world. It's just this tiny little smile that makes me feel like I'm showing myself a really nice bit of love. I love it.
Yeah, and those things really do make you feel better. And I really appreciated how she shared her personal story of her and her husband Dave. And she shared that they went through a really rough time and their relationship could have ended at that point. But instead they decided to get together, work on each other and themselves, and really fall in love with themselves. And now, I mean, Dave came and supported her through the episode. They were super cute together. They have a great relationship because they put the effort. And I think we can all learn something from that. I think we have a lot of disposable relationships these days because the grass is always greener on the other side. But I think it's a good lesson for people to give every effort you can into the relationship first before just casting it aside. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. There are some relationships that are better not together anymore. But let's really work at figuring out, have we tried everything before we walk away from this thing? I love that point. Linda Miller from Misty River Introductions, what I really took away was just that we can have this vision in our head of a type, and we can go after the, that's my type. I like a man or a woman that looks like this. And instead, what she's saying is if that hasn't provided the results that you're looking for in a relationship, maybe try something new. Step outside your comfort zone. And you know what? Try not just one date, give them a chance. I think that a lot of us do that. We try a first date, it doesn't go the way that we dream about it going, and then we just forget the whole thing. And she was suggesting try a couple of dates. Try going out 2 or 3 different times to different places. Well, my own mom, when she met my dad, he wasn't necessarily her type, but she gave him a chance, went on a couple dates. He made her laugh. They had a great time. And now 36, 7, 8, 30-something years later, I should know this, I'm a bad son. But they're still together and happily married. And so you're right. Don't be so dogmatic on your type.
Agreed. And then Kate McNamara came on sharing that, you know what, we need to spice up our relationships. If we're in a long-term relationship and we're just doing the same dinner and a movie every time we go out on a date night, or maybe we're not even going on date nights anymore, we've kind of thrown those to the wayside, it's like, no way. We need to keep things spiced up a little bit and change it up. So she has lots of creative ideas to have more fun in our relationships.
And what's neat about maybe trying something that you wouldn't normally do is it gives you a chance to even be more vulnerable with your partner, and you may end up connecting on a level that you just weren't doing the same old kind of dates.
Yeah, definitely. All right, episode 8 on digestion with, once again, my favorite holistic nutritionist, Natasha Villeneuve. And she was just really sharing that the digestive system is the foundation to our health. It really isn't about what we eat, it's about what we absorb. And so she really talked about if we're not digesting our foods properly, we can have really awful symptoms that are related to digestion that we might not even think about. Things like asthma and autoimmune issues and breathing issues, skin issues, obviously digestive issues and things going on. And then of course you know that my favorite topic, almost my favorite topic, is poop. And so she talked about, you know what, if we're not happy with what we're seeing, we really need to take that seriously. Obviously the inputs create the better outputs. So we have to...
It's a great way to see what's going on in your body. And I really loved where she talked about the ritual of food. I think smelling food, taking your time to prepare it, sitting down, eating slowly, chewing your bites. We tend to sit in front of the TV so often these days and shovel through our meal to get to the next thing. And if we just take our time, be present with our meal, that's infinitely better for our digestion, which, as we learned through Natasha, can impact all these other areas of our health.
Definitely. All right, we've got a couple of minutes left. We want to get to episode 9 on grief. And so we had Anne Deveau and Marie-Lune Fortin. That was the first time she came on the show. And really what I liked about what Anne was talking about was grief is an invitation for personal growth. And yes, grief is hard. And yes, it feels awful when we lose people that we love and we don't want them to be gone. I mean, in my own experience, what I wouldn't do for one more hug with my dad. But you know what? I can still have a relationship with him. It's not like it had to end in that moment. And it just has really allowed me, the way that I've grieved has allowed me to evolve my own self. So that was really powerful for me, that it's not the end.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the important points she made is you're supposed to feel these feelings, and you should feel them and feel them all the way through. And a real interesting point that I think was made was that grief doesn't necessarily just mean we've lost a loved one or a friend. We could grieve the loss of a job. We could grieve the loss of a pet or moving.
Definitely.
And so when you have those feelings, don't feel like you shouldn't. Feel them, work through them, and then move on.
Absolutely. And Marie-Lune, she was really, of course, sharing with us that she believes that they are angels. They are still here. They are like a whisper away. She tells me all the time, my father's always right behind me on my right-hand side. My Nana is always above me. And again, I can still have relationships with these people because her point is only love is real on earth and afterwards.
I know it's hard for some people to wrap their mind around or believe that there could be these spirits and people are still around us, but it's interesting. And when you look at science, energy is not created or destroyed. So that energy transfers somewhere.
Absolutely. All right, back with more highlights in a moment. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Talk. We're looking back at the season and sharing some of the pieces that really spoke to us. So the next one was episode 10 on concussions.
Yeah, I mean, this was an important topic. I wish we had an hour to talk about even more again.
Yes.
But I really, what I hope people got from this episode was how serious it is. I know growing up, I'd get a concussion and you just kind of lay it off for a day and let it go away and move on. And we never really took it seriously. And I like to look at it as if you're playing a sport and you sort of get hit and you get an injury, I would rather be benched for a game than to have to miss the whole season because I kept pushing.
Definitely.
And people need to do that when they get a concussion. I know it's not fun getting off screens and taking that time out, but it's so important, especially in that first 48 hours, take a step back, relax, let your body recover. Because as we've seen with some of our friends and Lisa, these things could last for years.
Exactly. So we had Lisa Cara and Karen Monet. Those were our guests that night. And Lisa did a great job of just reminding me that that things don't happen to us. They happen for us. And that is the attitude that she's taken, and it's changed everything for her. So she's been able to really come out of all of her post-concussion symptoms and go on to realize that this happened for her. She now uses her experience with the concussion in her work with her Pilates, company, that at the beginning when she first got the concussion, having to close down her business, completely change everything, scale back, of course, on how much work she was doing, it was devastating for her. But it's funny, she talked about the example that I love sharing about when Oprah says, if you don't hear the whisper, you get the brick on the head.
Yeah.
If you don't feel the brick on the head, the whole wall comes crashing down. She was overworked and pushing herself too much, and this concussion forced her into having to take that step back. So if we can have that attitude where, this is giving me an opportunity to take a step back, to get closer to what I really know that I need to be doing, and to treat it seriously, like you were saying, that's key for sure.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing that Karen talked about was really giving alternate healing modalities a try. She talked about, of course, with Opticom, her lenses and how that can get rid of a lot of visual stress that people go through with head injuries and concussions. But even some of the other resources that she mentioned, I think so many times we can try one thing and get frustrated that we're not getting better. But there really are a lot of solutions out there. You just have to look a little to find them.
I totally agree with what you're saying. And with Karen, she really shared, get a case manager, meaning a family member, a friend, or a case manager. If you are really struggling, if you've had your concussion and it's now going on, it didn't clear within the first few days, you need somebody to really help you along. And like you were saying, try all sorts of different things and really she talked about looking at all of the different senses. And if you need someone to help you with your hearing, if you've had something going on with your jaw, if you are having vestibular issues, if you're having vision issues, get that team together. And I know that that's easier said than done. Not everybody has access to all of that, but if you can do some of those things, really it can be so helpful. And also diet, meditation, mindfulness, exercise, like really it's
take care of yourself.
Exactly. And the recommendation isn't so much anymore just laying in bed for days and weeks. It's slowly getting back into life. So episode 11 was on stress, and we had Sarah Vadabonker with us for the entire hour. And she really shared a lot about the diet and lifestyle habits that can affect our stress. First of all, what we're doing to cause the stress, and then what diet and lifestyle habits we can take on to reduce the stress. And that's what I found so interesting, of course, when you and I were talking afterwards, after the show. It was like, we keep talking about diet and exercise, and how important it is, and mindfulness and meditation, but it is the pinnacle of health. And
are we sensing a theme?
We are definitely sensing a theme. And what I really connected with when she said, people will put health at the top of their list, and then she'll say, let me see how you are taking care of your health. And people are not putting health. They're writing it at the top of the list, but they're not actively engaging with their health throughout their life.
Yeah, so much impacts our stress. And I think what really spoke to me on a personal level, being an entrepreneur, is this idea of stress is stress, whether it's good or bad. And we're in this age where, especially if you're an entrepreneur, where hustle is good. Oh, I didn't sleep 8 hours. I only need 5 hours. I only need 4 hours. And I worked 18 hours today. And it's almost this badge of pride, even though it might be exciting and good. To our body, stress is stress. So we need to really prioritize our health, like you mentioned, and stop looking at that as a badge of honor and look at the 8 hours of sleep, the meditation, the healthy eating, those things, time with our family. That's the badge of honor.
For sure. She really talked about a lot of different things that we can do as far as supplements go, like methylated B vitamins. She does a lot of IV, even getting our vitamin D checked. She was saying, if you live in Canada, your vitamin D is low. So don't even question it. Just go in and find out how low, and then she can help you out with that. Because vitamin D, when I started supplementing with vitamin D, all of a sudden I was feeling so much better. It really does boost serotonin in the brain, and it really helps. And then also, I've now gotten onto L-tyrosine, which again is boosting my dopamine, things that are making me feel so much better and helping me to naturally reduce my stress. And then again, of course, she's talking about walking and not taking on too much, and maybe having to not have the the houses, the 2 cars, everything that the neighbors have.
Stressful keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. I think so many people will say, yeah, but I have no choice. I have to commute this far. I have to have this job. I have a mortgage to pay. I have these kids that I have to pay for all of their activities. And I have all of these pressures and stresses. And her point is, no one is stuck. You really can eliminate some of these things from your life if your health really is number 1 priority.
Yeah.
If you want it to stay number 1, you've got to do the things that help you to keep it number 1 and to mean it, that it really is going to be number 1. So I really enjoyed that episode with Sarah Vadeboncoeur. So I encourage anyone, get your saliva tested. She said that you might not want to get a blood test because that can cause stress, so you can get the saliva tested. All right, episode 12, the final episode last weekend on chronic pain. And we had 3 guests on. We had Dr. Jeff Balin, we had again Marie-Lune Fortin, and you were here as well. So with Dr. Balin, my biggest takeaway from him was truly at the end when he said, never ever give up hope. I think that so often, we just really feel like if we've tried things and if we're in pain and if we're feeling marginalized, that we can really start to give up hope. And his point is just keep going. The body wants to heal. And if you can really keep giving it the inputs that it needs and trying different things, that's going to be, really impactful. And one thing that we had wanted to touch on before he came on, I said to him, okay, and I know we're going to have to talk about medical marijuana because so many people are asking me about it, and I wanted to get his take on it. So we talked about it before the episode, and then we ran out of time during the episode. But essentially, Dr. Balin's advice was simply, it's another form of medication. So he groups it in the same pile as other medications, and for some people, medical marijuana can work really, really well. Yep. For other people, not so much. And I think he recommended that anyone under the age of 25 not use medical marijuana. And that was definitely something that was mentioned at Pain Day as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with Dr. Balin, I actually had a jaw drop moment when he talked about opioids and that a lot of the research and studies are showing you can expect using them about a 30% decrease in pain. And that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I know and I think most people assume I have pain, I get these strong pain meds, I take them, my pain's supposed to go away, and I'm supposed to be better.
Yep.
And that's just not the truth. And I think if we can go into it expecting that that's not going to happen, then we can look at a holistic approach. We can take our exercise seriously, we can take our diet seriously, and we can start doing the things we need to do along with our medication to get out of pain. But if we really just are relying on our medicine, and the medicine's not doing it, well then the answer for a lot of people is just, well, I better take more.
Yes.
And more.
Yes.
And more. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to increase that decrease.
Well, exactly. And because I think we learned at Pain Day, and Dr. Balin was saying, the goal with medication is always to be trying to wean down.
Yeah.
We don't want to be prescribing more. But I agree with you. I think that most people, they take a medication thinking that that is going to be the cure.
It's the magic pill.
Right, and we forget that that these are Band-Aid solutions. These aren't getting to the root causes. Yes, they can help people that are in chronic pain, that are in agony. Oh my gosh, your mother, of course, is a prime example. And she has, throughout her time of being injured and disabled, she has taken a lot of different medication. But I think that even for her, it was just kind of scratching the surface for her. She had to develop other strategies. So I'm so grateful to know your mom and to know that she is, of course, she created this amazing pain bomb, which you came on the show to share, this amazing stuff that literally works for people. I'm gonna put it on the table, to help to relieve pain. And she also is exercising, and she knew that her diet was important. So she's really throwing a lot of things at her pain, and she's been really able to take it down from, when I met her, it was like a 10, and now she tells me it's a 2 or a 3.
Oh, that was 18 years ago she became disabled, and for 16 or 17 of those years was not a real good lifestyle and pain, and now doing the holistic approach, she's a whole new woman.
I know. It's amazing to see, isn't it?
It's fun.
Marie-Lune Fortin, she came on and shared her very personal story, and that was really powerful because she is someone that, of course, I'm friends with. She lost her mother at a young age. She went through a lot of pain and agony with OCD and PTSD, a lot of emotional pain. And so we talked a lot about the link, the tie between physical pain and emotional pain, and how they're intimately linked. And so that was a really good conversation I felt with Mary Lynn.
Yeah, and I think again, it boils down to this idea of give things a try. I myself had pain for years, as we just talked about, seeing my mom in pain for years, and I've seen it throughout my family, friends. Pain is devastating. And I think we get stuck in this rut of just believing nothing's going to work. And I've met a lot of people in pain who have that belief. They've tried a bunch of things, and they really believe nothing's going to fix my pain. This is just the way it is. And so I really encourage people, if you feel like you've tried everything, get out, connect with someone like a Mary Lynn. Connect with these other people who are doing alternative ways to heal and fix pain that you may not have any necessarily faith in or belief in up to this point, but you should, because a lot of people are getting relief from it, and it might work for you too.
And even though she was saying it does work a lot better if people do believe, even if people don't believe, they can still have some really good success.
And it's funny because we know the same thing to be true with the medication.
Right.
People who believe the medication is going to help them see a dramatic improvement over people who don't believe it.
Or not even just the medication. People that believe whatever treatment is being offered, acupuncture, massage, whatever it is, if they believe it's going to work, myofascial release, it has a much better chance of actually working.
Whether you think you can or can't, you're right.
Yeah, that was Ford that said that, right? I also liked when Mary Lynn was talking about creating her recipe. And so she picked people, she hand-selected people when they would say to her, when she would say, do you want me to cope or do you want me to heal? If they were just trying to get her to cope, she was like, off the team.
Yes.
And so she really created her recipe, as she calls it, with the different healers. And she also shared that we are the healers. Each and every one of us always wants to heal. Our bodies want to heal. Natasha Villeneuve talked about it in the digestion episode. You cut your finger, your body just heals naturally. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do anything. The body naturally wants to heal, but we have to try things. We have to give it what it needs in order to do its work.
Yeah, it's one thing I've really loved about watching these 12 episodes has been those common themes. You know, taking care of yourself, really giving yourself the time and the love, trying different things, opening your mind to being open to different things, whether it's relationships or food and digestion or pain, trauma, mental health, and taking action. You've got to take the steps. You've got to take an action and do something with it. And I know, again, it could feel like you're stuck, but you've got to just, what's that next thing you can do? Make that plan and take an action.
Yeah, well, when I first started thinking about this show, it was, I really find, because I'm immersed in the world of health and wellness, and so often I go to the grocery store and I see the magazines with, try this diet and lose 10 pounds, try this workout and lose 10 pounds. It's all about losing weight to be healthy, and that is not necessarily health. Yes, of course, body size is related to how healthy we are for the most part. Certainly when people are morbidly obese and they're at risk for certain cancers and for heart disease and different things, and having that visceral fat affects our health. But let's get to the root cause of why we're doing the things we're doing. Why are we not valuing our health? Why is it that we say health is super important, but we're hitting the drive-thru every day, or we're super overstressed, or we're overstressing our kids, or just not doing all of the things that we should be doing? But this has been an amazing experience.
Yep.
And Roger, thank you so much for being here for every episode along the way. I have absolutely loved having this experience with you, and thank you for being on the finale with me.
I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Thank you so much. When we come back, I'll share my final thoughts. Back in a moment. Until I started this show, I really didn't know what to expect. All I knew was I had a message to share, that no matter what, we are not alone. And I had topics I wanted to explore to remind us of that core truth. I wanted to talk with real people who are on the ground floor, in the trenches, doing the work to help us live our best lives. I have loved every single moment of this experience, and I will be forever grateful to my guests who have been with me to share their messages with you. Thank you to my sponsors who believed in and supported the vision for this show. And to Gavin Lumsden, the supervising producer here at Rogers, thank you will never be enough. But thank you for making a dream I never really knew I had come true. And to Sean Augustman, my amazing director and producer, for always making sure things went off without a hitch and for curating a stellar team who have worked so hard to bring this show to life. I am truly, deeply grateful for you all. Thank you to my Nana, the impetus for this entire thing and who is still guiding me towards my best life. And to my entire family, those who have passed on and those still here, for cheering me on throughout this experience. It means so much. To my partner and guest tonight, Roger Deveau, thank you for supporting me in yet another one of my crazy ideas that only seem crazy until it's all over and we realize we've done a really good thing. You are my rock and my soft place to fall, and I love you dearly. And most importantly, thank you for being here week after week as we've grown as people while learning more about ourselves and each other. It's been an honor and a privilege to go through this experience together. As always, until the next time, I want you to remember one thing, that no matter where you are and no matter how it feels, you are never, ever alone. See you next time.